Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Well, aloha there. Seems like everything is doing good. Everything is in order so far. Man, let's see where we can start. Well, we went through all that, talking about his life. Phil K's Dick's life, where he had a challenging one when it came to some personal things that really led to, some profound actions that pretty much states what he's been going through when it comes to substance, when it came to political, when it came to security things, where his life had to deal with all that stuff around the Cold War. When you can think about it, this wasn't in the wiki, but something that really put in my mind, and I believe it was actually from a video before, was that Philip K. Dick inspiration of science fiction novels, particularly Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, was that it was inspired when he was actually researching the Man of the High Castle, the alternative World War II fantasy series, that he learned about how did the Nazis pretty much everyday lives have to deal with the Holocaust when it came to certain actions they did. One particular example would have to do with where one Nazi officer had to uh, write down his own feelings whenever he had to deal with uh, Jewish, was it? Not just Jewish, gypsies, but particular any prisoners in his day-to-day work. Where what is coming to my mind was that the person wrote down how his experiences were not the haunting, but it's more like he was annoyed. It was more like he was doing a typical job that has some annoyances, writing things that were like insignificant to him. Where it's like, oh yeah, his job was actually to conduct one of the most mass murder events the whole time. In a day-to-day basis, a bunch of people just died. Recorded all of that. A lot of people were retarded, and he was just acting like it's a one day thing. Which later on inspired Phil Kip Drake, where he thought about, okay, this sounds like something an android, a robot, a pure robot who are not a human, doesn't have human emotions and stuff, would act. Push forward to how people think of the future. How do androids, how do people act like things, because of the Second World War being so unkind, quite a big event during his time, during the time everybody lived in. It really just goes to show how the idea of what is it, a person trying to create a character who is pretty much acts like a robot, pretty much just lives their day with how much subtlety, not much issues like what any other human would do. It really points out how things are nowadays. If anyone wants me to elaborate more about that, but anywho, it's something that's just running my mind. And yeah, but one things I could actually point out from this wiki has to do with, yeah, pretty much even has an applied to Canada, mental health and suicide attempt. When it comes to Canada, it has to be related to connections to the FBI, when it comes to national security, and then on to other things he experienced, like paranormal experiences and stuff. all that people would have to worry about. And this is running on my mind again, but really fascinates me of Stanley Kubrick's one of the reasons why he actually moved to England away from the United States was worrying about how people would, particular people from America, so many Americans are fearful when it comes to the nuclear war, a chance that the United States actually will be bombed in total oblivion. Something people actually had to worry about when it came to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then when it came to the idea of MAD becoming a thing, and then nuclear arms and such, which does proof that this is something people have lived with. I can't imagine that. The closest thing I could imagine would be some trouble things in this time when it came to misinformation, when it comes to people living in augmented reality, when it came to using their smartphones in their everyday lives, and when it came to always being interconnected into this wide web of this current internet. That's something I could just relate to. But anyway, I figured I could just read off. What is it? Let me choose where to read off at. We're already gone to selected works, pen names, adaptations. Yeah, we can go through here. I think I should. Yeah, I want to start here because going through all this, yeah, we get a good gist of it. I feel like I'm not gonna be able to cover everything as usual, just because. Just know there's a lot of blue text, all these links to other works and such, that I could just talk more and more about it. So I figured I could just talk a gist of it, because this is what I'm just remembering when I was reading the Wikipedia of Philip K. Dick. It's just to understand more things that I wouldn't learn otherwise, but now I do, and I am quite happy about that. So, no further ado, adaptations, films. Several of Dick's stories have been made into films. Dick himself wrote a screenplay for intended film adaptation of Ubik in 1974, but the film was never made. Many film adaptations had not used Dick's original titles. When asked why this was, Dick's ex-wife Telsey said, "Actually, the books rarely carry Phil's original titles, as the editors usually wrote new titles after reading his manuscripts. Phil often commented that he couldn't write good titles. If he could have been an advertising writer instead of a novelist." Films based on Dick's writing had accumulated a total revenue of US $1 billion, $1 billion by 2009. So I take it for Ubik, it not might be his original title. The only movie he's been working on that is one of his classic books is probably not a title he decided to pick. But it's quite funny because of the Blade Runner movie. Anyway, Blade Runner 1982, based on Dick's 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, directed by Ridley Scott and starring Harrison Ford, Sean Young, and Rutger Hauer. A screenplay has been in the works for years before Scott took the helm, with Dick being extremely critical of all versions. Dick was still apprehensive about how his story would have been adapted for the film when the project was finally put into motion. Among other things, he refused to do a novelization of the film, but contrary to his initial reactions, when he was given opportunity to see some of the special effects sequences of Los Angeles 2019, Dick was amazed with that the environment was exactly as how I imagined it. Cool. Though Ridley Scott had mentioned he had never even read the source material, following the screening, Dick and Scott had a frank but cordial discussion of Blade Runner's themes and characters, and although they had widely different views, Dick fully backed the film from then on, saying that his life and creative work was justified and completed by Blade Runner. Dick died from a stroke less than 4 months before the release of the film. And yeah, that's the quite tragedy of it, because we would have had an interesting take into cyberpunk if we could have seen how Philip Dick be more involved with that genre. But that's just one of the things, because what I can think about, Blade Runner is not entirely the same as the book he made, and then even then, it's not exactly what he imagined cyberpunk, Philip K. Dick imagined cyberpunk as. And then it started mix mashing it. I mean, it's very similar with Blade Runner 2049, where that Blade Runner film is much different than what the original Blade Runner movie in the 80s was, because it shows more of a, not a dystopian world, but more of an apocalyptic world that, when you think about it, and this is just so great about Blade Runner 2049, is that it is something that I love rewatching, because I feel like I'm watching a different movie, and that I could watch it alongside with Blade Runner without being fatigued, and also made me compare and contrast old sci-fi movies, but literally media, not just movies, to new ones. Because what is it? The original Blade Runner really never depicted the world being in a burning type of environment like what we do now, but that's part of the doom or gloom of climate change. That, yeah, the world seems pretty apocalyptic than just dystopian, and that's quite troublesome to think of that way. Actually made me wonder how the original author of Brave New World would have thought about our troubles in this future, and maybe create a world that's more dystopian than what he made way back then. But anywho, Total Recall 1990, based on the short story We Can Remember It For You, Wholesale, directed by Paul Verhoeven, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Confessions d'un Bonjour, 1992, titled Bonjour in the English language, released a French film based on the non-science fiction novel Confessions of a Crap Artist, along with Screamers. 1995, based on the short story Secondary Variety, directed by Christian Duagri and starring Peter Weller. This location was altered by the war devastated Earth to a distant planet. A sequel titled Screamers The Haunting was released straight to DVD in 2009. Yeah, Minority Report, based on the short story The Minority Report, directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Tom Cruise. People don't talk about Minority Report that much. Damn it. It's actually a really good movie. Imposter. Oh yeah, before I say, I guess one reason because Minority Report had more of a vision of futurism, which is not that popular anymore compared to when it was popular back in, the good old early 1900s. So, yeah. I don't know, it's reminding me of Futurama. I love Futurama. That did good. And I guess that people keep on thinking of Futurama as its own artistic styles as science fiction rather than being inspired by futurism. But anywho, Imposter 2002, based on the 1953 story Imposter, directed by Gary Fleder and starring Gary Vincent D'Onofrio and Madeline Stowe. Okay, the story was also adapted in 1962 for the British television anthology series Out of This World. A Scanner Darkly, Paycheck. Then next, Radio Free Abath Adjustment Bureau, Total Recall 2012. No, 2012. Thinking shit, that was exactly 10 years ago. So instead of 2022, it's 2012, exactly 10 years ago. Directed by Len Wiseman and starring Colin Farrell, second film adaptation of the short story We Can Remember It for You Wholesale, and Blade Runner 2049-2017, which was, guessed it, 5 years ago. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, and starring Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, the sequel to 1982 film Blade Runner, based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Denis Villeneuve, yeah, I have trouble pronouncing the name. Neville, Stallone. But yeah, something I want to also go back to because, I'll just go back next time. Or sometime later. Maybe never. But anyway, feature films based on Dick's writing include a film adaptation of Ubik, which, according to Dick's daughter, Isa Dick Haggett, is in advanced negotiation. Ubik was set to be made into a film by Milko Gondra in 2014. However, Gondra told French outlet Tamara via Jean Atu that he was no longer working on the project. In November 2021, it was announced that Francis Lawrence will direct a film adaptation of Volkman's Hammer with Lawrence about blank. New Republic Pictures and Electric Shepherd Productions producing. An animated adaptation of The King of the Elves for Walt Disney Animation Studios was in production and was set to release in the spring of 2016, but it was cancelled following multiple creative problems. And the Terminator series prolongedly features the theme of humanoid assassination machines, first portrayed in Second Variety. The Hulkline company, known for developing the Terminator franchise, acquired right of the first refusal to film adaptations of the works of Philip K. Dick in 2007. In May 2009, they announced plans for an adaptation of Flow My Tears, the policeman said. But anyway, too bad they never mentioned RoboCop because of it being sort of related to Ubik. But then again, something people just never talk about. And I being hyperbolic because, I just feels like people never talk about it, is that the Terminator series, a lot of other these high-rated science fiction classics movies from the 80s and the 90s, like RoboCop, Terminator, were inspired by Westworld from the 1970s. People just don't talk about that movie, and it's a shame because that movie is quite interesting. But it came with another TV show. They made one in the 70s too, but it didn't do so well. No, they made a new one, which was years ago, which is just phenomenal because, that really does expand the whole idea of not just being in a theme park where androids pretty much exist, but also the idea of AI consciousness, reality, and other things. And at least, now it's getting better now than it used to. So it does show some goodness. That, other than that, Ubik, I would have to say that is one film I would love to watch because it will actually work out. But maybe it will work out too much that's why people just don't want to talk about it, because when it comes to corporate espionage and stuff, something that people just don't want to talk about, think about, or can't relate to, which is odd because that's a modern topic now than it was back then in the 50s and 60s. So goddamn. Television. It was reported in 2010 that Ridley Scott would produce an adaptation of The Man in the High Castle for the BBC in the form of a miniseries. A pilot episode was released on Amazon Prime Video in January 2015, and season 1 was fully released in 10 episodes of about 60 minutes each on November 20th, 2015. Premiere in January 2015, the pilot was Amazon's most watched since the original series developing program began. The next month, Amazon ordered episodes to fill out a 10-episode season, which was released in November for 2 positive reviews. A second season of 10 episodes premiered in December 2016, with a third season announced a few weeks later to the release of 2018. July 2018, it was announced the series had been renewed for a 4th season. Yeah, then in late 2015, Fox aired Minority Report, a television series sequel adaptation 2002 of a film of the same name, also Dick's short story, The Minority Report, 1956. The show was canceled after one 10-episode season. In May 2016, it was announced that a 10-part anthology series was in the works, titled Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. The series was distributed by Sony Pictures Television and premiered on Channel 4 in the United Kingdom and Amazon Prime Video in the United States. It was written by executive producers Ronald D. Moore, Michael Denner, with executive input Dick's daughter Izzy Haggett, and stars Bryan Cranston also as executive producer. We don't talk much about a TV adaptation of also Philip K. Dick and his stories. And when it comes to think about it, yeah, it would have been interesting to follow these people around. I mean, the biggest person I keep on thinking about is Stanley Kubrick, but there is no series that goes through his life, or his work, his career, his personal, his beliefs, that I guess that's the reason why there's a lot of YouTube videos that talks about his biography and stuff, but I'm imagining if there would have been one for Kubrick, for Dick, and other authors, how interesting it would be, because going through his life and stuff, really in detail when it came to the production, when it came to the series, when it came to executive ordering decisions, that the man up here has an interesting story, but there's probably reasons why they don't follow it. But yeah, trying to see an episode of how do you become inspired from Philip K. Dick. How would Philip K. Dick be inspired by making The Man of High Castle, then switch it up to Android's Dream Electric Sheep to Ubik? And yeah, it just seems like for Ubik, it's just something I am interested in, just because the fact that out of all the films, he tried to make that one, and that there's not much evidence about that, so it just brings the curiosity. So maybe there will be videos that share case of that. I mean, seems like, yeah, if I want to look at good biography films behind the scenes, I'll see someone who is interested in making a video about it. And I mean, if it also sounds like, me having an idea, no, anybody can really take that idea. I mean, go ahead, because the more the merrier, and trying to share things. But yeah, a dramatization, just like, was it a bunch of these, not true crimes, but true crime shows based on specific high profile people like serial killers. They're very popular now. The one is not Charles Manson, but the other one with Notorious Yeah, let me actually try his name because I know it's gonna pop up somewhere. It is something that we dramatize, but we just don't have for anybody else. True crime does show that there's a specific genre that people like to follow, high profile criminals and such. And even when it came to some notoriety people, when it came to politics, white collar, controversial entertainment, political, business like people. Like I'm thinking about like was it the couple who did that largest was a crypto coin scam. Yeah, I just can't think of names right now. It looks like I can't remember his name. So yeah, let me actually just do general shirts for what's it? Notorious serial killers. All time. I could describe his. Yeah, I mean, I could describe it. I'm already. Big glasses, blonde, white, not that very tall. But yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, that Jeffrey Dahmer series that came out recently. That largest crypto Bonnie and Clyde type of couple who actually we got raided by the FBI by a sting operation. And you know, it's quite funny because I'm just gonna leave it out there. I don't know much of their names, and I wouldn't say it's not just because I'm bad at names, trying to remember names, because you know I could always describe about people and just details, but when it comes to technical jargon, something that's just trivial, it just goes in my line. But for Philip Dick, I know him clearly, and some of the tidbits of it because learning is life. But I find that interesting. I mean, you know, that's the case with all these Wikipedia articles that I usually follow. It's usually things I'm interested in because what is it? You know, I could tell you about India, some of the things I learned from Tamil, well, the state of Tamil Nadu compared to Gujarat, which is the one nearby Pakistan, to way back when, man, I ended up reading about parkour and learning about some of the Tibet history about how there was two influential people where the person who created parkour officially France was sort of inspired by his father, who actually did it while he was living in, was it French Indochina when he was a military school type of place. And it's just the stories like that just makes me really treasure the things I try to recall, try to think about because it's fascinating. And all the fascinating things should, be told. Just like, a dramatized version of not just Jeffrey Dahmer this year, but one about Philip Dick and the way he lived. Or maybe it's too much. That's why they don't try to have people make it. Maybe making shows about serial killers is just an easier way to create a popular show versus authors. But anywho, it is that time. So